I'm excited about today's content. We're going to review two content creators who are talking about the topics of astrology and Christianity and crystals and how there's a bridge between these two different worlds, these two different sectors and audiences. And so there's an audience on one side where they have believed in Christianity, they grew up in Christianity, and anything against those principles are demonized. And then there is another audience where they have started to have questions and also have experienced trauma from the church, and so they adopted and found more solace or peace in practicing spirituality, looking at astrology, using crystals. And with these two different audiences and these two different worlds, I see a bridge between the two, and I also see similarities between the two, where one is demonized and one is on a pedestal, but on both sides. So what I did is I go through these comments of these videos, and I noticed that if you're on one audience group, if you're in one audience, you're like, yeah, all those people out there, they're stupid, they don't understand, they don't get it. And then the other side, they're saying, they just misinterpreted it, they don't read, or they are church hurt. There's so many different ways and there's so many different languages that we use. And even on the idea and understanding of church hurt, I'm interested in if there has been any spiritual hurt. And the reason why I have this question is because there's so many different nuances. Sometimes when we're talking about a group of religious people or a group of Christianity and you're from the spiritual lens, people think that everybody thinks the same in that world, and they say, oh, Christians, and this is why Christians this and this is why Christians that, instead of taking each individual for themselves and each experience for itself. And then the same world for those who are Christians who look at spirituality and say, oh, they're witchcraft and they're doing these things. Now, I am not in this position or place to say what is what, because on my personal journey, I'm more interested in going inward. And so I'm inviting you all as my end friends, those who are friends from the internet, to go within and beyond the content that we consume today and the content that we see in our everyday lives, and create content in ourselves that is promoted by our thoughts being our reality. Because the common denominator I see when we go back and forth is that we don't really have a solution of let's come to the table, let's understand each other, let's see what that common thread is. Sometimes that common thread is we're afraid. Sometimes that common thread is that we don't know. Sometimes that common thread is that we're all trying to figure it out, and we're trying to hold on to something that makes us feel like we got it all together, when sometimes I feel like everything is crumbling apart. And that could be your faith system. That could be your crystal. That could be astrology. I mentioned in a video a while ago that I grew up in the faith base, and I also was introduced to astrology. And when I was introduced to astrology, it actually led me back to being interested in the Bible and seeing astrology throughout the Bible, those same concepts in the Bible itself. And it also promoted more questions on why don't we talk about that? Talk about this more, or why isn't this something that is beyond just a surface level saying? So for instance, what I mean is we'll have these surface level sayings like, just be good. What does that mean? Don't do that. Why? And what does that imply? And why are these things happening? And sometimes there are experts in these things, and sometimes people are just led to their own understanding. So what I want to do today with you all is I'm going to go through these two videos, and I have a special video at the end that brings it all together for me. And I want to just get your input and your insight on it. But first, let me introduce the content creators. I won't say too much because I don't have too much on them, but the first content creator that we're going to be looking at name is Braylon Simone. Braylon Simone is also known as B. Simone, an American actress, comedian, entrepreneur, musician, and social media personality. And then we're going to transition to a response video or reaction video by Jasmine Garden. That's her social media name. I'm not sure if that's her first and last name, but Jasmine Garden is... I couldn't get a bio, so I kind of made up the sentence. So, Jasmine, if you ever come on, I'd love to have you for a discussion. But this is what I have. You can definitely share who you are. I see her as a content creator who offers spiritual guidance with a focus on religious deconstruction therapy. I saw that on her website, and I thought that was really interesting, helping her audience navigate their spiritual journeys with insight and empathy. So let's take a look at what B. Simone said that had the spiritual community triggered, and then we'll look at how Jasmine responded.
I gotta get this off my chest, and I gotta let y'all know I cannot go into 2025 with people who are still looking forward to their daily horoscope. I can't do it. This war we fighting, I need some intercessors. Y'all over here carrying around sage? Y'all still got rose quartz. I get it. I used to have the rose quartz in my bra. Like, I'm gonna find me a nigga today. Yeah, this rose quartz, this rock gonna bring me my husband. I get it. I have been there. But what I'm saying is I'm not there anymore. And nothing against the people who believe in that. Just as for me and what I need in my life, I don't need a tool. I need the blood. So if you ain't covered in the blood, hey, you can't go into next year with me talking about did you read your daily microscope? I don't give a damn about what the horoscope say about Aries. What does Matthew 2 and 2 say? Can you pray? All them rocks, all them rocks and herbs. Do you know the Bible? Yeah, I'm leaving that in 2024. I'm leaving that in the past. If you cannot intercede on my behalf with the blood of Jesus and you do not carry the Holy Spirit, you don't carry the Holy Spirit, but you carrying around herbs. If you don't get that dust out of my face and get in that prayer corner and pray for me, I need a friend. I need an intercessor. Jesus, all them rocks.
Okay, how are you all feeling? I know this seems like a very, but people have been doing this a lot lately. They've been coming on podcasts and they have been talking about astrology. And I'm just saying this because my algorithm shows me this. Y'all, I am so interested in content about faith and mindset, belief system, and all the different angles. Most of it sitting in this idea of like biblical principles. But I've been seeing this a lot of places, especially for those who have dived into this world of spirituality. They have embraced it and they practiced it, and then they come out and then they come on the other side and they reveal all the secrets and the ins and outs behind it, and you know how it does work, and then what it does change in your life. I think it's an interesting view. But the idea here is we have someone who's against it and they're using their real estate on the internet, right? And friends, internet, we're on the internet. And the interesting thing about the internet is we can put stock into anything that we want. We don't have to invest in any ideas. So I have this idea called the Thought Exchange on a channel where we decide if we're going to bid, if we're going to allow this advertisement to make us buy in. So one thing that I would always know for myself, and I'm inviting you all to consider, is if someone says something on the internet that you aren't pleased with, instead of investing the time or the energy to be angry or to find more words to say to, find your disgust, navigate through what you want, what reality you want. As a man thinketh, so is he, is in a faith base and is out of faith base, because people use that same principle of your thoughts being your reality. If you don't, I believe that there's this back and forth. It's a tension that's being created, and it's like an unwanted desire. Unless you like it there, to me, it's like, okay, this is interesting, but I wouldn't want to get all worked up and have to go deep inside of my body to call people names. And this is what I've been seeing in the comment section. This was what I'm drawing out. I was going to share some of the comments, but I don't think I'm going to have time to. But I've seen some of the comments, and people are, well, let's see. Let's just look at a few. I'm just going to pick out a few. We're just going to pick out a few because I screenshot a whole bunch though. So let's make sure that I don't go too long on today's video. So this one was B. Simone's video. Let me go to, okay, so this one says, it's funny how everyone else can stand firm in their beliefs, but when a Christian does the same, it's you need to be more loving or stop judging. Yes, we're called to speak the truth in love, but we're also called to be bold in what God says. Let this woman speak the truth with conviction, just like anyone else. We're allowed to stand firm in our faith too. Very good point to bring out, because what happens is if on both sides, y'all, it's happening on both sides, which I think is just like, it's almost like the same thing. It's the same thing. We're just putting on different clothing for it. But the idea is, if how do we exercise, or how do we love well? This how do we love well is it's down to the way that we speak. It's down to the sincerity. It's even down to, if we're going to use sarcasm in our words. So in an entire video, I try to write some notes. So one thing that stood out to me is, she says this for her in her life, and this is the community that she wants to be around. And so now we understand who our audience is, right? If you don't believe or you don't like what she says, then you wouldn't be around. That would be logical to me. But I know that sometimes we can see content and it still trigger us because of how we feel about it, even though we hear the author say this is you're not the audience, right? But she says nothing against those people, but in the same breath, she says nothing against those people, but she criticizes those people and tell them where they should go. So if it's nothing against the people, then we got to be mindful in our word choice and say, this is about me. I statements are important when we're having conversations. I still have to practice that because I get all passionate and say we all just need to love each other, But some people don't want to love. Some people, and I'm still practicing understanding what that even means, because it's one of those things where like we all think we know what it means, but then sometimes when it's practice, are we making it up? Do we really, have a good understanding and idea of what love is? Do we think love conquers all? Because at this point, I would hope that love should be conquering all. But there's so many different other forces that have so much more power. And it's supposed to be this little grain of mustard seed of love that should be really helping us and putting us at the top. But what's not working? That's one of my questions, is why isn't love prevailing yet? To the point that it's overpowering all this negative thoughts and divisions and all the things. So still understanding what love is. But anyway, our delivery and our messaging is important, especially if we really do believe, like, what was the purpose? Like, what I would be interested in the author or the creator of this this message on, what was the purpose? Was it to warn everybody that your page has changed and you don't want them around? What were we trying to, make fun of it? Because we're going to have to go into this next video, because I think Jasmine shares a lot here that I'm probably getting into my brain already. But here are 3 questions I want you all to consider from B. Simone's video, and then we're going to go ahead and navigate to Jasmine's reaction. So when B. Simone criticizes the use of crystal and sages for their lack of biblical endorsement, how do these critiques align with or contradict the use of physical objects like the rod in Exodus or the mantle in Kings, which are used symbolically or as points of faith in the Bible? The next question is, considering B. Simone's emphasis on the need for intercession through the blood of Jesus rather than physical tools, how does this preference reflect or conflict with the biblical use of altars, incense, or other physical elements in worship and prayer? B. Simone emphasizes the need for intercessors over spiritual tools. How did this preference shape the way individuals might seek support during personal or spiritual crisis? So those are just 3 questions I want you to consider as we thought about B. Simone's response. If you have any questions that you think would be interesting to have at the conversation, let's just imagine we're all the conversation. We all have all these different interests and belief system. It's the diversity of thoughts. What questions would you bring based off of seeing that content? And I only went over one person's comment, so let me just look at a few other ones so it's a little bit balanced out. So this next one says, you can have your own opinions and beliefs without downplaying other people's. I think one of the dangers in Christianity today is that folks who practice don't understand that they are supposed to lead by example and inspire folks to come to God through love and positive encouragement and education. My pushbacks towards Christianity comes from videos like this, because it's not our jobs as humans to demonize one another. If you want certain people in your community, curate that for yourself. But if you have to downplay another person's way of being to emphasize and glorify your own, then I don't want any part, for real. This turns people away from the practice. And just 2 more comments from the video. This one says, that's exactly why you don't really get it, because you thought it would provide a man for you. I go against it too if I thought that's how it worked. Now, I thought this was an interesting comment, because what people already know about something and what they expect people to know about something on both sides, whether it's the faith of a religion or spirituality, is so interesting because there's so much required. It's a life study, and most people are working their jobs, trying to make sure they get, their everyday duties, even trying to figure themselves out, trying to figure out their passion, but yet they are almost required to know what it is on each side. So I'm thinking like this. What this comment made me think, okay, so even on the spiritual side, people think people come into the spiritual side, like B. Simone obviously used to use these things, but she had the wrong idea of it. So is that the same case where people who come from a spiritual or went to the spiritual world or and came over to or was in a Christian world or followed a religion, they had a wrong understanding of it and they also had it misused? See how it's all just blended together, all of these ideas and concepts. Now I'm not an expert on talking my stuff about this, but I'm just interested. I'm interested in a conversation. I just want us to all come together and talk about it. But let's look at Jasmine's response to B. Simone, and then I'll have some questions and some comments from there.
Be real controversial, but I don't care. I gotta get this off my chest, and I gotta let y'all know I cannot go into 2025 with people who are still looking forward to their daily horoscope.
I'm going to say something because B, you and I have been mutuals for quite some time, which leads me to believe that you followed me before you got to this point within your Christianity, which is fine. But also because you said on Instagram if somebody wanted to talk about it that you were open and willing. My problem with this is it's not controversial, it's concerning. Because Christians should be able to lead in love, and that love should be guided or therefore after followed by empathy. So your empathy and your love should have kicked in and told you, oh, if they're checking their horoscope every single day, it's obviously that they're seeking some sort of understanding. I'm wondering where was your love and your empathy when you said, oh, y'all still carrying around rocks after you said you carried around rose quartz in your bra for 12 years hoping it was going to bring you a nigga. Then you should understand they're operating within the same energy of desperation you were operating in, which should create more room for empathy and less room for judgment. I was wondering where your love and your empathy was when you said, oh, y'all still carrying around them herbs? Today is Christmas and Jesus was gifted from the wise men frankincense and myrrh. Those are herbs. I get it. There might be things about our practices and our beliefs that you don't understand. That's the reason a lot of us left the church in the first place. God is not a last resort for some of us. He was a first stop. I didn't understand why we celebrated a virgin birth because based off history and the time period, Mary was in an arranged marriage. She was a child. We celebrate the birth of a child who came from a child. Y'all shame teenage pregnancy in the church, but it's okay if it was the mother of the Savior. That's weird to us, but it's okay for y'all. So in that manner, we let y'all have your beliefs. We don't talk about you unless you come talking about us. As I said, I'm always open to a conversation, but I rather recommend somebody that I think is more qualified to have this discussion with you, which is my mutual, my friend, Christian A. Smith. He is a pastor, but he's also a deconstructionist because decolonizing Christianity is pertinent for your spirituality. There's never a reason to publicly misunderstand somebody else's beliefs to promote your own. So let me know if you want to chit chat. Either way, Merry Christmas.
What do you guys think? Jasmine, I've seen a few pieces from Jasmine and she's so good with her words. She's like poetic. It's a talent and a gift to be able to talk the way that she does. And to be transparent with you all, I like to bring in the content from other creators because I have a lot of thoughts going on in my head and I don't know how to put it together so seamlessly like this. And I just appreciate how people do so well with words as I practice. But I like how she presented this, and it's so interesting here because I wasn't really sure, and my sarcasm meter is usually really good. I know there's probably some sarcasm, but I really felt a little bit of genuineness in this. I don't know if I missed the mark. But I did feel some genuineness in her speech. Even the Merry Christmas at the end felt very I was like, okay, Merry Christmas. I don't know. But usually when she's sharing her content, she's people would say she's reading receipts. That's what the children would say, that she's putting it down. But she does come across as someone who thoroughly researched and was in depth with her questions as related to the faith walk. And from my understanding that she's a child of a pastor, so she was in it. And these conversations, I think they are really profound when you have people like us who have been in both worlds. I haven't been that embedded in the spiritual world. I just remember being interested in things that wasn't the same as, you know, the faith system, but I didn't even know that they were wrong at one point. Now we're discovering all these things that are wrong and you cannot do, that it's just becoming a little bit overwhelming, because I look at the world and I say, I don't limit God. God is in everything. But the way that we humans use these things is most important to me. And where do we start? What is our foundation? Do we use God in everything? That's how I look at it. That's my opinion. I have to use I statements. Okay. There are people where it's almost like you're living in this world where it's like it's rules and it's scariness and it's all these things. And I don't know how we all keep up. For the people who know all of these answers and have all the books and all the resources, wow, because I don't know how y'all do it. So let's look at some of the comments underneath Jasmine's video, and then I'll have 3 questions for you. But I will say this: Jasmine's video provided a question in my head, because I never even thought about this. I never even thought, on all the years and all the questions that I have and all the insight, I never thought about Mary and her age and her being a virgin. And I understand that it's a miracle thing and it could be beyond my understanding. But this last video I'm going to share with you all, I think really stapled it all together for me, because being honest and being true requires us to be honest about some things that don't make sense to us on the physical realm. And if we're looking at the Bible, there are understandings that are used based off of our everyday experiences on earth, like how fathers deal with their children. Those are used as examples. So there should be something that we should be able to capture and understand based off even the format in the Bible when they're telling us stories, right? But I thought that that was one of the reasons that inspired me to do this video, is because, okay, I still have questions. There's still room for me to explore. And I'm not one of those people where it's all or nothing. I really do think that if we're being honest and true and you have questions, that's accepted by God. Are we not allowed to have questions? If the questions, what I've learned about my questions is, at one time the questions were, how do I keep proving the Bible to be wrong? Or how do I keep thinking about this Bible being, used against me? And then I started looking at it from a different view of questions where, how do I understand this? What am I missing? And each way we're creating our own reality. That's why we go back to our thoughts create our reality. If at the end of the day, I keep looking for the good, I'm going to be finding the good. And I noticed this even, I don't know if you guys do this or if you guys see this, but I will get something new in my life and then I'll start seeing it everywhere. Or maybe I got a hairstyle and then I start seeing that same hairstyle. So I've noticed that just on the surface level, that you think about something and you start seeing it more and more. So if I kept thinking about the Bible and I kept wanting to destroy it and make it the worst and look at all the horrible things, then it's just going to get worse and worse. But when I went the other direction, it was like, okay, teach me this. How does this life got better? So that was just in my world. But y'all let me know in the comments what you think about the video, and overall, what do you think about the interaction? And I'm going to just share a few comments from underneath Jasmine's video. This one says, heavy on that's weird to us. And that goes for a lot of their stories and testimonies. Preach it. This one says, also, you do understand that the appropriate age of birth only went to 30s due to change in generational time. Do you also understand the enemy is against the seed, i.e. children, and its agenda to have less childbearing women, and you walk right into their direction? Like, girl, you talk a good talk, but hush. I actually agree, but it's a lot of spiritual who not only disagrees with Christianity, but blaspheme our God all the time. So it goes both ways about the tearing down belief of others. And this last one says, if people only really truly study all religions while practicing their own, if people only became lifelong learners, not needing to diss other people at all, we are all in different points of the spiritual journey. Stop worrying about what others believe, because the base of the majority of the religious is meant to teach us to practice peace, love, kindness, taking care of each other, and living respectfully on this earth. Woo! Yo, I don't know if it get exhausting to look at all the back and forth, but because I've taken a different approach. It's not as exhausting. It's more like, it's like, oh, okay, whatever that means. So there's one comment, the third comment on this one. I like this for thought, because what do we expect? What do we want out of our spiritual journey? Whether you are following a belief system, or you're following, and that belief system is Christianity or spirituality or what have you, what do you want as your end result? What is your desire? So for me, I would like to spend this time on earth experiencing love. I would like to spend this time on earth being happy and joyful and all of the things. I would like to see how great life can get. And I would also like to tap in to see, what is everlasting life? Is it something that we can tap into? I sincerely know that if I'm being authentic, that's what I want to see. Now, when I think about people's spiritual belief systems, I wonder, what do you want from it? Because when we go back and forth, if we want for it to be peaceful, do we have to be interested in how we speak to one another if we want everyone to get on this train? If we don't care about everyone else and everybody follows their own belief system, are we supposed to be in different corners of the earth, never engaging with one another and just making it, this is my corner over here, all the cool people, all the in friends over here? No, we're going to be all over. I just see myself as like, we're going to go and talk to everyone, because wouldn't it be nice to have this diversity of thought, to understand maybe there's a common thread, and we're so much more interested in upping someone, like getting the up on someone, or being right all the time, or dividing or getting clout, that we don't realize that there is a middle ground. Which I love about Jasmine's video is she mentioned that she's operating the same energy of desperation as some of the same people who decided to go that route. In some case, we all have to be honest at the fact that there is some desperate energy of, we want our truth to be truth, and we don't want anyone to come and crack it down. And perhaps that's something that we can get to all together, that vulnerable state, that take away the pride, take away the fact that no one really knows all of the things, and that if we could just listen, be slow to speak and quick to listen, that we might be able to hear something that we can resonate with. But before I close this video, I wanted to share with you this last video, and I just watched this video and I just watched this video, and I just thought, thank you for bringing this together for me, because I was sitting on the floor when I seen the 2 pieces of content, and I was just like, dang, Mary was young. Oh my goodness. Like I was just sitting there, like, my head. But now this is a reminder to me, and I hope it can be a reminder to you, that we are all trying to figure it out. And I'm going to allow this content creator share her perspective, which I think is beautifully done. It has nothing to do with our first 2 content creators. Right before we go into this last content creator's video, I do have 3 questions that I want you all to consider as it relates to Jasmine's video and her response to B. Simone. So here are those questions on the screen. How can we balance strong advocacy for change within religious practices while maintaining empathy for those who hold traditional views? Second, Jasmine talks about decolonizing Christianity. What does it mean to decolonize your faith, and how might this make religious practices more meaningful for everyone? And lastly, Jasmine suggests that the same people left the church because of misunderstandings or disagreements with traditional teachings. What does this say about the role of the church in adapting to the spiritual needs and question of its congregation? So think about those questions. I have 9 questions out today's video. The goal here is for you to choose one of them, for you to go into your journal, for you to go inwards, and to really make this work, because a lot of it's going through content and just reacting off of the first few clips and not really getting into how this impacts you, or why it triggers you, or why it make you mad, might just keep us in a circle. And so I'm a big believer in writing things down, journaling, and really thinking our thoughts through. But let's look at the thoughts from this last creator. Let me know if you put stock in this thought. What are your takeaways? I really enjoyed it, and I'll tell you why right at the end. But let's look at what we have here.
I have a theory that the surge of millennials and Gen Z leaving Abrahamic religion is directly correlated to their understanding of what good parenting is. For the first time in history, more than ever, millions of us are coming to recognize that a parent forces a child into existence and therefore owes them everything, which is a huge shift from the way our parents thought about bringing a child into the world, right? There was so much language for even thousands of years that a parent is giving a child a gift. Whereas our generation is more likely to see it as this being didn't ask to be here. It is here as a result of our desires. We forced it into existence against their consent, and therefore we are responsible for caring for that child, and just as importantly, communicating how it should live in a moral way, in a way that the child can understand. We put the onus on ourselves to communicate in a way the child can understand. And if the child doesn't understand us, we recognize that we need to communicate in a way that they cannot misinterpret, because we are the one with a fully developed brain and they are the ones with a brain much less developed than ours. So it's our responsibility to communicate clearly to them. Now, let's see how this connects to most holy texts of Abrahamic religions. Whenever you bring up a verse, a phrase, in any of these Abrahamic texts that seems explicitly misogynist, homophobic, in favor of slavery, in favor of violence, the explanation that you will inevitably get is, oh, it might look that way, but you are misunderstanding it. And in order to understand it properly, you need to go look at the original language, which you don't speak. You need to go look at the historical context, which requires literacy, access to experts and information. It requires all of this effort on the part of the creation to not misinterpret the holy instructions of their perfect parent. And as a new generation of parents, we recognize that that is an inverse balance of power. If I don't understand something, a being that was forced into existence, and there is a holy being who is perfectly capable of communicating to me in a way that I would not misinterpret, that I don't need, a master's degree in divinity to understand, that I don't need a PhD in history, that I don't need perfect lessons in Arabic or Aramaic or Greek. Can you imagine if you were a human parent and that's what you required your toddler to know in order for them not to misinterpret your commands? That's on you. You need to be a better and more communicative parent. You need to use a medium of communication that your toddler can easily understand and that is more foolproof to misinterpretation. And because as a new generation of parents, we recognize that the person with the most power and authority, the person who forced a being into existence, is responsible for communicating well. It's harder for us to shift this responsibility onto ourselves, as we have for thousands of years. It's harder for us to look at these texts and say, okay, even if we squint, even if we massage, even if we can get enough textbooks and enough language translations to somehow make this not problematic, why is it on us to do that? Why wouldn't a perfect, responsible parent communicate in a way that their children can easily understand without error, or at least with close to no error? Right? Why would he require all of these extra resources, right? And he is perfectly capable of communicating well. And on top of that, to punish your children for acting in a way that is wrong, which they directly attributed to your holy texts, which they misinterpreted for whatever reason because you made it easy to misinterpret. You did not provide all of the resources within it to make sure that nobody could read certain words, like slaves obey your masters, and not reasonably come to the conclusion that slavery is fine as long as you treat your slaves okay, right? That's the parents' job, to communicate well, and we know that as new parents, millennials, Gen Z, we recognize that the relationship of the powerful to the less powerful puts responsibility on the powerful. And that's why Abrahamic religion, which traditionally reversed that, the less powerful is responsible to understand the powerful, and if they don't understand the powerful, they are punished. That power dynamic no longer makes sense. And the more people, like me, like millions of other people, my generation, recognize it, it's harder for them to swallow the traditional answers of Abrahamic religion.
Very well said. Very well said. I know that I hold on to just an experience that I have. And I believe in my experience, because it was manifested in my own world. However, when I think about the text and I think about how I navigate through the text, I understand that there are principles like Jasmine brought up, or now that I understand, like Mary being young and the understanding of the slave. And just when you read it, that everyone has a different interpretation. And if you have a different interpretation and you believe that God spoke to you in a certain way and you believe that to be true, that there's someone around the corner to tell you that it's wrong and it's not it. And that's what I think about. I brought this video into the conversation because I thought it stapled things together. I don't know if you guys can feel that and see that like I do. But when I look at when I look at B. Simone, I know that it would be easy for people to bash her or to bring up all her flaws in the comments and to say that, you know, she doesn't know. But honestly, she represents a lot of people who are holding on to a truth or a tradition or a passion because it's something that they believe in and it's something that's been taught. But it's still the same understanding that no one really knows how to work it out. The same people that decided to leave Christianity because those people were church hurt are still trying to figure out something that they don't understand, because we're all trying to figure out, why don't we have the answer book? Why don't we have the keys? Why does it seem so difficult? I should not have to go to theological, what is it, school? I shouldn't have to go to school. I shouldn't have to go to the school for the Bible or to study all these books, or even down to all the different worlds. It's like, if you don't know this about decolonizing, if you don't know this about the white man, if you don't know this about the language, if you don't, like what she was saying, like, who's supposed to know all of these things? Who? And I'm sure when people do study one route, they're limited in all the other routes. And if we are these spiritual beings, and it is a spiritual experience, is it something about quietness? Is it something about our words and our action and behaviors that can help guide us through these blind spots in life where we're all trying to figure out, we keep bumping into each other because we think that our truth is the truth, and we keep bumping into each other because our egos get big and our pride gets big, and then we just keep messing over in the house. I always use this example of you know, the father being gone from the home, and we're here, Mother Nature, and we're just going back and forth and messing around in the house, and there is no structure, there is no guidance, but we are expected as toddlers to just grow up and just know all the answers. Whenever I see you know, a parent of an animal or a parent of a child, and they're like just mad and yell at the child like, you should have knew this, you should have knew that, I'm thinking in my back of my head, like, how are they supposed, what clear instructions did you give? And the clear instructions for those who believe in Christianity and the belief system is the Bible, but it's not clear. It's not as clear as it can be, because even those who are studying it from different disciplines are all saying something that's different, and that's causing confusion. So what's the answer? What is the ultimate goal? I would love for us to write down, what do you even want out of your spiritual journey? What do you want out of your belief system? And then start curating questions that help you go in a direction of that way, so then your world opens up. Like, I don't want to stay in a world of confusion and division and all this yelling back and forth. And I want clarity and understanding. So what type of questions are going to provide clarity and understanding? So to close out this video, I'm going to share the last 3 questions from this video, and then I want you all to just consider curating your own reality and being intentional about the content that you invest in, understanding what exactly do you want your thoughts to create in your world. So this creator, Jordan, I didn't really share too much about Jordan. No, this is the first time I came across Jordan, but she's Jordan, if you go, I apologize if I say that wrong, on TikTok. And she also focused on deconstruction, deconversion, and parenting. I love talking about deconstruction and parenting, just about faith in general. So I'll probably look through some more content to see what we have there. And hopefully, if you see this video, you can be a guest on the podcast. But let's look at these last 3 questions together, and then we'll go ahead and close out. So Jordan talks about the challenges of understanding holy text without expert knowledge. How does this relate to our quest for true answers in spiritual teachings? The next one is, considering Jordan's point about the responsibility of powerful figures to communicate clearly, how does this influence our trust in the teachings we follow? And then lastly, Jordan questions traditional explanations that place the burden of understanding on the follower. How does this challenge what we accept as true in our spiritual practices? I want to thank you all who created space and time to be with me to the end of this video. I hope that you consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. If you leave a comment, make it thoughtful, make it a part of the table discussion, add diversity and inclusion in the conversation. I invite everyone who wants to have thoughtful and meaningful conversations. If that's something that you're not up to, then I guess I gotta kick you out of this part of the internet. I don't know why I thought that was funny. But anyway, until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.